Hey, what's going on everybody? Alex here with Freedom Mowers. Hope you guys are having a good one. And today we are going to be starting on part 2 of the Arian's 34-inch Zoom Zero Turn. So, if you guys remember on the last one, we had basically just got it started. I was able to just fix that small piece of fuel line that was leaking, and really it was just getting it turning over fast enough, and it seemed like everything functions on it as far as engine running, sounds healthy, and the hydros and the deck engages, but there's a lot of small things on here that need addressing. One of which is where they have disconnected the coil wire from the system and then just added in their own wire that you could basically ground anywhere on the frame to turn it off. And I think that the reasoning for that was that they were trying to bypass all the safety features on this, and so we're going to try to get that corrected, try to get the kill wire back in the system, and try to get the safeties all functioning as they should. The other thing, let me grab this flashlight. The other thing from last time that I didn't really show up close to you guys is that the where the positive wire goes onto the starter, the whole housing here has broke loose. And what I would like to do, because there's really not an easy way of just fixing that, is I have this other starter here on the shelf and it's missing the gear. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and swap out the gear from the other one onto this starter and put this one on. Also, let me show you guys. Give me one sec, I'm gonna put my headlamp on. Alright, had to get the headlamp on. So originally this emergency brake handle on here, or the parking brake handle, it would go in the upright position easily, but to go down it was binding up like really bad. Like I had to put a ton of force into it to get it to go. And what I found is that the arm right here, you guys can see it, the arm, the rod that connects the two pieces, it had a huge bend in it, and it was kind of making it difficult and kind of binding up. It basically has like two little tabs that the little cam can fall into on it, and it was just pretty much binding up with the rod. And I also greased the cam on here, which I can't really show you guys because it's in a really tight spot. I don't know if you guys can see, there's a little white cam in there, and that falls in between on this plate, either one of two grooves. And but just getting that rod straightened out and putting a little grease on that cam, now the parking brake lever is working as it should. But we are missing the rods on both sides that connect the linkage here that actually engages the parking brake, the cam gears here that lock in the hydros on both sides to make sure that the parking brake fully functions. So what I'd like to do is see if I can maybe fabricate a couple rods to do it. I started looking at the parts diagram. I'll show you guys real quick. Turn this light off. Let's see. So here is actually that plate that I was telling you guys about. Pretty much this arm right here will fall into either one of these grooves. So I greased the cam and we got the rod straight. But the other part that we are missing, well, on both sides, is just this little linkage rod, and it looks like with the hardware and everything, it's going to be about $80 which isn't too bad, but if I can fabricate something, that'll be nice. Let's see. The parking brake safety switch has been bypassed right here. So I would like to get it to where everything is going to work as it should and all the safeties are there. I guess the first thing we're going to do today, let's just go ahead and pop off the engine cover here and get that loose. That way we can get to the starter, and we'll work on the starter, see if we can get that swapped over and get the cam gear, or the gear on the top, and then we'll just see if it's going to start turning over easier and if it'll start up for us, and then we can go ahead and connect up the wire for the coil and see what kind of troubleshooting we need to do on the electrical system. So we should just have the 4 3/8 bolts on the cover. Alright, there's all 4 of those. Just gonna leave the fuel pump mounted on the back. We really just need to move it off to the side enough to get to the starter here. Alright, well, I went to go take off the positive on here. I was having a heck of a time getting the grip on it anyways, but wire ended up breaking off. Which that starter bolt's about to fall out. Just 2/2 inches to get the starter off, so see if we can't get this gear on the other one. Alright, I'll show you guys where I'm at here on the starter. Just got the top clip off there. It's kind of difficult to do, but I was able to get it with the just get up underneath the edge with the screwdriver there, and then should be able to just take off the top ring here. So you just got the clip, the ring, the spring here, that washer, and then the gear. So now we'll just go right over here. Put the spring washer on there, the spring, and the top plate on there, and then I'm not going to be able to put that clip back on by one-handed, but I'll get the clip back on there, and then we'll go ahead and get the starter mounted back up. Alright guys, well, I got that mounted up and got the connection tight. It's starting to rain like crazy here, and it's starting to thunderstorm, so I'll try to wrap up for now, and then we'll move on to the next part when I can get back out here to the shop. But I just hooked the jumper pack up, and I'm gonna try to turn it over and see if it'll start up, and see if it'll turn over a little bit easier for us now too. It's turning over a lot easier. I don't even know if there was any gas in the tank, to be honest with you. No, the tank's dry. Probably won't even start it right now then. But you guys can hear it's starting over a lot stronger now. And we got the starter fixed anyways. It needed to be fixed because sooner or later that wire was going to come loose, and could be a potential fire hazard too. But so yeah, we at least got the starter solved. I'm gonna go ahead and button up the top cover here, and we'll jump to the next step. Alright guys, well, it's been a couple days actually since I filmed that last part where we got the starter repaired on here, and the next step that I wanted to get into was the wiring on here, because the way that they had this set up, they had the coil the magneto kill or the coil kill wire disconnected, and they were using it basically to just touch on the frame to ground it out to turn off the machine. I'm filming this a couple days later because it took me a couple days to figure out what was going on with this, and I was really racking my brain with the troubleshooting. I know some of the basics of troubleshooting switches and stuff like that, but this one really really put me for a loop, and I'll explain, and I'll show you guys what the fix is. So let's kind of just go through it real quick. So I've got the coil wire connected back up. I put some connections on there, and I just got to finish tidying this up and putting the heat shrink over. So I got those hooked up, and then you just have your basic switches, you know, your seat switch. I have the switch out right now on the bench. I'll show you guys in a minute. Just your parking brake switch, and I think those are the only two switches on this machine. Then you have your PTO, your key switch, and there's one other component on here that I've never really had to deal with before, and that is this relay down here. And then obviously, you know, you got your solenoid and your fuse, but we knew the solenoid was good because, you know, it would crank up just fine. It was just once that wire was connected up, it was basically making it with a no spark situation. So all right, let me get you guys set up here, and I'll start showing you some of the testing that I was doing right here on the bench, some of the components, and I'll show you guys exactly what was wrong with this machine. All right, so here we go. So let's just talk about the seat switch first. Seat switch, sometimes they're 4-prong, sometimes they're 2-prong. I would suggest the best thing to do is look up your model and try to get a diagram of how the switches work, and that way you can get a better understanding as to how your switch is supposed to work, because sometimes, like the parking brake switch on this one, it works a little bit different than some of the other switches that I've seen that are a 4-post. Sometimes they are, you know, disconnected one way and connected another way. This one actually has to have all 4 prongs, or all 4 prongs are basically engaged at one time. I'll explain in a second, but so the operator on the seat, you're just going to take and make sure that there is no continuity between the two when there's no pressure on the switch, and then when the switch is engaged, then you want to check for continuity between the two, and you should have continuity. On this one, the parking brake switch, you can see right here, so when the button's out, there's actually no contact or continuity between any of the prongs, and when the button's in, you should have continuity between you know, these two right here and these two right here. So go ahead and hook this up for you real quick. I'll show you guys. All right, so right here I just have it connected to these 2 prongs, and we have no continuity. And then, so you guys can see it, and then when the button is depressed, we have continuity between the two. And then the other side should be the same, still nothing. Buttons in, oops, buttons in, continuity, and then we got nothing. So that switch is fine. So I tested the you know, the brake switch on there. I tested the seat switch. I went ahead, and now that I've shown you guys, you know, obviously how you test it, I tested the PTO switch when it was disengaged and engaged, and I also tested the key switch on here, and that should have pretty much been it. So the next thing that we're dealing with on here is a relay. So this is the original relay that was on here, and so the pins are numbered on this. So basically you're gonna have, let's see, let me turn this the right way so you guys can see it. So it's just like in the picture. So you're gonna have a positive and a negative on each side. You don't need to have that for this test. Actually, I take that back. You should have that for this test. You will have to connect up a source for it, or you can take the outer casing off from that like I did, and you can touch the contacts together on the inside to simulate that it's energized. But let me show you real quick. So not energized, we should have continuity between 30 and 87A. So 87A is going to be your middle, and then this bottom one here. So and make sure you're not touching any of the other prongs. And we have no continuity here with this de-energized. Let me, I'll take this apart real quick and I'll show you guys what it looks like on the inside so that I can show you what it's supposed to do when it's energized. Alright, so this is what the inside looks like. There's basically a coil in here, and your positive and negative are going to go across this coil. And then a lot of times they're a 4-prong, or you can have a 5-prong. But basically when it's energized, it closes the contacts here. There's a little magnet on the end of the coil, and that draws it up. And that's when you have contact. So just to simulate that it's energized, you would close that contact. So now we need between 30 and 87. So there's 30. Here's 87. Make sure you guys can see the meter here. And then let's go ahead and close that contact, and we have continuity. So you guys can see that we have continuity this way, but we're getting nothing between 30 and 87. So let's see on this one. So right here, here's 30 and 87 alpha. And make sure you're not touching any other contacts, and look, we have continuity here. So this is a good relay. I tested it energized, and that one does work, so I'm not going to take that one apart. I just wanted to show you guys kind of what's going on the inside. So bad relay. Now I guess what was throwing me off is after a couple hours I did have this relay apart, and I was looking at it and I was trying to get a better understanding of how they worked, and it just seemed to me like it was still functioning the way it was. It was my fault. I should have just gone exactly how it was on the diagram, and you know, kind of troubleshot it from there. But I also, at the time, I didn't think that I had another relay that could work for it, and I was actually trying to just use a jumper wire on the harness to simulate that it was you know, energized or not energized, and I was still having all the same difficulties I was before with it starting, so I wasn't sure if that was the problem. But I went outside, I ended up finding a relay that would work with this, and I plugged it in, and lo and behold, it cranked right up, and all of the safeties work on it. Parking brake switch works great, seat switch works great, and got spark, everything on it's good. So in the end, it was a bad relay that was causing the headache, and I believe that whoever had the mower before, they might have tested the switches out and they couldn't find anything wrong, and they didn't know what was going on with it, so they just took you know, the easier route, and they just clipped the wire and had it where you could manually turn the mower off. So hopefully that wasn't too boring for you guys. I'm sorry if it was. I know the electrical stuff a lot of times is not the most exciting, but you know, I was learning, and hopefully it'll help somebody out too, and maybe some troubleshooting for you guys. Now, sometimes I guess the big thing too is making sure that you can find a diagram of your particular machine and the switches that are on it, because like this brake switch that's on here, you know, when it's engaged, you're supposed to have continuity between the four. A lot of times on these switches that are a 4-plug, it will basically have contact on one side of your prongs in one direction. Like if it's disengaged, you might have continuity between these two, but then when it's engaged, you might have continuity between these two. And that was another thing that kind of threw me off on this, because initially I just did your basic testing on it, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's you know, one side is not working when it's supposed to. So I thought this was the problem all along, or to begin with, until I found the diagram and it showed me how this particular switch was supposed to work. So you just kind of have to know, or you have to look up and see, you know, what your switch is supposed to do, because sometimes different switches obviously do different things, if that makes sense. So I don't want to run the video on too much longer, because I think we'll probably be at the 20-30 minute mark. I guess the next steps on here is, on the next video, I'll show you guys everything buttoned up as far as the wiring. I'm going to get the brake switch mounted back up the way it's supposed to, because I want to make sure that I've got all the safeties working as they should on this machine, and you know, make sure that it's going to work the way that it should. We still need to go through, I'm going to try to just clean the carburetor if it needs it, and see if that's just going to fix the problem. And if not, I'll probably just get a carb kit for this Nicky carb, and we'll get that, because it's still kind of sputtering and hesitating at low throttle. It clears up under like 1/2 to 3/4 throttle. So we still need the carburetor stuff. I still need to try to fabricate some rods to engage the parking brakes, and then other than that, I think it's really just going to be cleaning off. I want to clean off the deck and stuff like that, and just getting the machine cleaned up real nice. And I think besides that, it's pretty much done. We'll have the electrical solved, the starter issue fixed, and that should be it. So hopefully this video wasn't too boring to you guys. I'm sorry, this one was a headache for me, and it's probably kind of choppy. And I just wanted to explain to you guys the troubleshooting that I went through on here, and figuring out how to get this machine running correctly, because I don't really condone bypassing safeties unless it's your piece of equipment and that's what you want to do. That's up to you, but if you're fixing this for someone else, then I highly suggest making sure that the safeties work as advertised, so that people don't get hurt. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and thank you to the new subscribers that have come to the channel, and everyone's support. It means a lot, and I really appreciate it. So on that note, let those small engines sing, and let freedom ring.